This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Alma. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Residents of 13 barangays near the Taal volcano in Batangas have started to evacuate due to the volcano's unrest, according to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council.
The first international travelers touched down in the holiday hotspot of Phuket under a quarantine-free scheme as Thailand tries to reboot its battered tourism industry while also enduring its worst coronavirus outbreak.
And in the coming weeks, an increasingly large number of U.S.-produced vaccines will be arriving in the Philippines, either through direct donations or through COVAX, that is according to the U.S. Top Embassy Office in Manila.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo announces the rollout of emergency restrictions to Java and Bali to battle an alarming surge in COVID-19 cases as the Southeast Asian archipelago scrambles to avoid a collapse of its overwhelmed healthcare system. First in our news, residents of 13 barangays near the Taal volcano in Batangas have started to evacuate due to the volcano's unrest. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, said on Friday. Mark Cashian Timbal, NDRRMC deputy spokesperson, said the barangays from 6 towns are Barangays Poblacion, Sinturisan in San Nicolas, Barangays Gulod, Buso-Buso, Bugaan West, Bugaan East in Laurel, Barangay Subic, Ilaya, Banyaga, Bilibinwang in Agoncillo, Barangay Apakay in Taal, Barangay Luyos, Poot in Tanawan City, Barangay San Sebastian in Balete. Citing reports from Provincial Disasters Risk Reduction and Management Office of Batangas, Timbal said evacuees from these areas are housed in 11 evacuation centers. The number of affected families is around 345 or around 1,392 individuals. About 317 families are housed in evacuation centers, while those staying outside and sheltering with relatives are 28 families or around 110 individuals. Meanwhile, Philippine National Police Chief General Guillermo Eleazar on Friday ordered the deployment of personnel and vehicles to help in the evacuation. Police commanders were told to coordinate with the local Disaster Risk and Reduction Management Council to assist in assessing the needs of residents and ensure their health and safety in evacuation centers.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOC, said it had raised alert level 3 over Taal volcano after it released a dark phreato-magmatic plume estimated to be 1 kilometer high. Earlier, in an online press briefing or conference, Yusek Renato Solidum, the director of PHIVOC, explained the current situation. Now, let's listen in.
Kung bawat alerto ang ating pag-uusapan pareho, kaya lang ang pagkakaiba noong January 12, 2020 ay tuloy-tuloy ang mga pagsabog at nag-escalate hanggang talagang lumaki. Ito naman po ay pasulpot-sulpot at ang ating pinaka-panganib na binabantayan ay within Taal Volcano at doon sa loob ng 7 kilometers away from the main crater. So hanggang doon lang po tayo nagrekomenda na bawal pumasok ang mga tao, di kaya ay mag-evacuate doon sa mga lugar na may mga naninirahan. Sumasabog na po ang bulkan pero yung mga pagsabog niya ay maliliit lamang. Meron po tayong 5 mga explosion pero ang pinakamalaki lang 1 kilometro and then yung 4 ay hanggang 200 metro lamang. Alert level 3 pa lang naman tayo. Yung talagang mas delikadong pagsabog ay mas mataas ang posibilidad kung nagtaas tayo ng alert level 4. Kaya yung evacuation po natin ay restricted lang doon sa 5 barangay. 4 na barangay and partly ng 1 barangay doon sa Agoncillo at Laurel. So hindi naman po buong paligid ng Taal Volcano ang may paglikas. Meron po tayong na-record kahapon na 28 volcanic earthquakes, pero hindi naman po ito nararamdaman ng mga tao. Ibig sabihin, hindi pa ganun ka-intensified ang aktibidad ng Taal. Actually, magmula po kagabi, bandang 8:00 hanggang ngayon, makikita po natin na merong lumalabas na usok sa main crater ng Taal. Ito po sanhi ng pag-akyat ng gas at water vapor, no? Kaya po kapansin-pansin na tuloy-tuloy ito. Importante po na maging maingat ang mga tao kahit po hindi nila nararamdaman yung paglindol, ay meron pong nangyayari dyan sa Volcano Island. Matagal na po nating pinagtutuunan ng pansin ang aktibidad ng Bulkang Taal. Naglagay po tayo ng marami ng instrumento sa paligid. Meron po tayong team na titingnan kung makakapalipad tayo ng drone at lumapit sa crater para matingnan talaga kung ano ang nangyayari. At siyempre, patuloy tayo nakikipag-ugnayan sa kinaukulan, lalong-lalo na ang provincial government ng Batangas na siya ang namumuno pagdating sa disaster risk reduction and management diyan sa probinsya ng Batangas. Sa ating mga kababayan, meron po tayong mga mapa na available sa Hazard Hunter PH. Gamit ang inyong phone para masigurado ninyo kung ano ang mga lugar na posibleng maapektuhan kung sakaling magkaroon ng mas malaki pang aktibidad ang bulkan. Meron pong pangilan-ngilan na mga volcanic earthquakes magmula po kaninang 5:00 ng umaga hanggang ngayon, no, ay mga 16 at patuloy po ang pagbuga ng usok na may kasamang gas. Wala naman po mga pagsabog na naulit magmula kagabi. Siyempre sa panahon ng COVID pandemic, napaka-importante, napakahalaga na yung minimum health standards o protocol ay maobserba sa pag-evacuate lamang at doon mismo sa evacuation area para naman mas maging ligtas ang ating mga kabayan sa COVID-19. Pero equally important po, mahalaga din na maging safe ang ating mga kababayan pagdating sa mga volcanic hazard na pwedeng mangyari kung sakaling tumindi pa ang kondisyon ng Taal Volcano. At ito po ay marapat na kanilang pag-isipan ng mabuti kasi ang mga pagsabog ng Taal, maliit lang kahapon, kung sakaling lumaki, ay pwede na pong maapektuhan ang mas malayong lugar. No? Sana hindi matuloy ang mas malalakas pang mga pagsabog, pero nandyan pa rin yung banta na pinapakita ng Taal kasi marami pang gas na inilalabas.
Meanwhile, military personnel, vehicles, and equipment have been deployed to assist in several Batangas towns affected by Taal Volcano's unrest, according to the Armed Forces of the Philippines today. AFP spokesperson, Marine Major General Edgar Arevalo, said 2 military trucks come from the 2nd Infantry Division and a towable fuel and forward deployed to the Philippine Air Force's 730th Combat Group in Nasugbu town. He said, "We have placed more personnel on alert and ready for immediate deployment." Communications equipment were also deployed, according to Mr. Arevalo. Other units of the Southern Luzon Command are on standby and ready to assist anytime. The AFP's Joint Task Group, TAAL, led by Brigadier General Romel Tello, is coordinating with local chief executives in monitoring the volcano, now under Alert Level 3, which is magmatic unrest. Other military units were constituted as disaster response teams, including officer-led reservists with equipment placed on standby alert and pre-positioned at the Fernando Air Base in Lipa City. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Esther and I will be back right after this break.
Only one spot remains sa ating grand finals. And as we draw closer and closer sa araw na yon, we decided to have our old favorites return to once again prove that they have what it takes to perform at the biggest stage of them all. It's our wildcard episode, and things are about to get crazy.
This program is supported by China Bank. Your success is our business. Broadcast journalist Weng de la Fuente returns on Philippine television and radio to deliver top stories and engage with the country's policymakers, shapers, and movers. Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa Balit Talakayan.
Ako si Weng de la Fuente at itong Balit Talakayan, we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to the program. Now let's go over to Thailand, where the first international travelers touched down in the holiday hotspot of Phuket under a quarantine-free scheme, as Thailand tries to reboot its battered tourism industry while also enduring its worst coronavirus outbreak. We have Veronica Carino from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hi, Veronica.
Hello, good afternoon, Esther. The first international travelers touched down Thursday in the holiday hotspot of Phuket under a quarantine-free scheme. The country is placing high hopes on a much-needed tourism revival via Sandbox, a model that allows vaccinated foreign travelers to visit without quarantine. Let's listen in to some reactions.
Et c'est embêtant de passer les vacances enfermé dans un hôtel pendant 15 jours. Et là, on n'est pas enfermé. Donc là, c'est quand même, c'est le top. Voilà.
A real privilege and really happy. I'm happy to be able to bring my children home to their home country to be able to enjoy some lovely weather here in Phuket. Yeah, thank you so much. It takes a little bit of organising, but if you're prepared, it's very easy to go through the process. COE approval was very quick when you understood how to apply.
I will come to make a rest, make relaxing after 2 years without travel. And I like Phuket, that's why I chose Phuket exactly.
The launch of the quarantine-free scheme comes as Thailand grapples with its worst ever COVID-19 wave and the worrying detection of the Alpha and Delta coronavirus variants. Nationwide, the current case tally is at 264,834, but Phuket remains relatively unscathed as Thai authorities have rolled out a mass vaccination campaign in preparation for the quarantine-free arrivals, with 70% of residents receiving at least one dose. A total of 347 passengers on flights from Israel, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Singapore landed on Thursday. Etihad Airways EY430 flight on Abu Dhabi Phuket Suvarnabhumi route arrived at 10:20 a.m. with 44 passengers. 23 disembarked in Phuket, while the rest went on to Suvarnabhumi. A command center will track foreign visitors' movements via a mobile application, which tourists are required to install on arrival and also monitor for potential outbreaks. Besides being fully vaccinated, tourists must remain in Phuket for a fortnight if they wish to travel to the rest of Thailand and take free coronavirus tests during this period, a substantial expenditure for a family. Tourism makes up almost a fifth of the Thai economy, and the COVID-19 pandemic has led to its worst performance since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. The kingdom is finding high hopes for a much needed revival on the so called Phuket Sandbox, a model that will allow vaccinated travelers to visit without quarantine. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Veronica, for all your updates. Please stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, and likewise, have a great weekend. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
In Thailand, while the Thai government is upbeat about its Phuket Sandbox reopening scheme, a medical team is now in Greater Bangkok dealing with a surge of new COVID-19 infections and deaths. We have this update from Gretchen Kusadsad from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, Esther. Good afternoon. Here in Bangkok, Thailand, according to Bangkok Post, while the government is upbeat about its Phuket reopening scheme, health personnel in Bangkok are struggling to deal with a surge of new COVID-19 cases and death tolls. Hospitals are experiencing a shortage of intensive care unit or ICU beds and staff to take care of patients in serious condition. The Public Health Ministry has mobilized 144 newly graduated doctors from several provinces to help take care of patients amid the shortage of medical personnel in Bangkok. A welcoming event was organized yesterday for the doctors who specialize in internal medicine, pulmonary medicine, infectious diseases, and critical care medicine. During the ceremony, Esther, the Deputy Permanent Secretary for Public Health, Thongchai Kiratiyakon, said that this is the first time in the public health ministry has had to mobilize doctors for special purpose. He also added that the graduate doctors have been vaccinated against COVID-19 and they will receive remuneration and allowances according to ministerial regulation. Meanwhile, Esther Apisamay Sri Rangson, the assistant of spokeswoman for the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, said that an exodus of workers from closed construction sites in Bangkok has led to an increase in infections detected in 32 provinces. She also added that this prompts provinces to issue strict orders for local people and officials to be on the highest alert. This is not, or rather, the people are not prohibited from returning home, but they must act responsibly towards their relatives. That's the report from Bangkok Post. Esther, back to you.
Thank you, Gretchen, for that update. Stay safe always.
Likewise, Esther, this is Gretchen Gusadsad reporting from Bangkok, Thailand. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the health ministry in the island nation of Maldives will reopen their offices to their employers. Now, here's more from Steffi Dewan joining us live from Maldives. Hello, Steffi.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Health Protection Agency has stated that starting from Sunday, they will allow public and private offices to be reopened for their employees to attend and work from their respective workplaces in adherence to the guidelines stipulated by the authority. Reopening of government offices is listed among the easements given to the COVID-19 restrictions announced. However, government offices will remain closed until July 3 as per the announcement made by the President's office. Regardless of the decision to close government offices, the period was not declared a government holiday. Government employees were instructed to work from home as needed within these days and to render all essential services without interruption by online means. Government workers are to return to their respective workplaces starting from next Sunday. Well, if you remember, Alma offices were closed on May 5 due to the alarming surge of COVID-19 cases in the Maldives, especially in the congested Mali area. Meanwhile, with regardless the easement of COVID-19 restrictions in the Maldivian capital, the parliament is also working on resuming in-person sittings as early as next week. The parliament first switched to virtual sittings last year with the first wave of COVID-19 cases in the capital, a move which made history as the first time for the parliament to hold virtual sittings. The parliament switched back to in-person sittings once cases subsided and were sittings with an alarming surge in cases last May. With a significant plummet of cases being observed within the last 2 weeks, the government has decided to ease many of the restrictions that are currently in place. And that's my quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Alma.
Such a beautiful island nation, just like you. Thank you so much for your report and looking forward to more updates coming from Maldives. Stay safe and have a safe weekend.
Thank you so much, Alma. Please be safe and have a great weekend too. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Stephanie Huan, and we live in interesting times.
In the coming weeks, an increasingly large number of U.S.-produced vaccines will be arriving in the Philippines, either through direct donations or through COVAX, the United States' top embassy office in Manila said. In a Business Mirror report, Charge d'Affaires John C. Law, in an ambush interview at the sidelines of July 4th Independence celebration at the U.S. Embassy in Manila on Thursday, said, and I quote, "And we're going to help as much as we can." The Department of Health, the task force headed by Secretary Carlito Galvez, and all others to do what we can to support the Philippine rollout its vaccination program, unquote. Law said the U.S. is sending at least 45 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to the Philippines through the World Health Organization or WHO-backed COVAX facility, in addition to the recent White House announcement that it is donating 80 million vaccines around the world. The vaccines are starting to arrive in very large quantities. The U.S. is distributing through COVAX to 92 countries, Law added, saying the U.S. has donated $2.5 billion to COVAX, which could reach $4 billion this year.
To Indonesia now, where President Joko Widodo announced the rollout of emergency restrictions to Java and Bali to battle an alarming surge in COVID cases as the Southeast Asian archipelago scrambles to avoid a collapse of its overwhelmed healthcare system. Take a look.
Telah mendapatkan banyak masukan dari para menteri, para ahli kesehatan, dan juga para kepala daerah. Saya memutuskan untuk memberlakukan PPKM darurat sejak tanggal 3 Juli hingga 20 Juli 2021, khusus di Jawa dan Bali. PPKM darurat ini akan meliputi pembatasan aktivitas masyarakat yang lebih ketat daripada yang selama ini sudah berlaku. Pandemi COVID-19 dalam beberapa hari terakhir ini berkembang sangat cepat karena varian baru yang juga menjadi persoalan serius di banyak negara. Situasi ini mengharuskan kita mengambil langkah-langkah yang lebih tegas agar kita bersama-sama dapat membendung penyebaran COVID-19 ini.
President Joko Widodo said the new measures would also be imposed for more than 2 weeks in the capital, Jakarta. and across hard-hit Java, as well as on the holiday island of Bali, after virus infections surged to record levels, topping 21,000 per day in Southeast Asia's worst-hit nation. Indonesia's official cases skyrocketed after millions traveled at the end of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan in May, and as authorities warned that highly infectious newer virus strains were rippling across the world's fourth most populous nation. Now, according to a BBC report, under the new rules, all staff working for non-essential businesses will have to work from home, and distance learning will be implemented across schools. Malls, places of worship, and public leisure facilities like parks will also be shut, with dining in banned. Businesses, including those in the health, security, and energy industries, have been deemed critical and will be allowed to run at 100% capacity, which means all employees can go to work. Others, like financial services, which have been deemed essential, can run at 50% capacity.
Staying in Indonesia, thousands of people gathered at a vaccination center in the Indonesian city of Tangerang on Tuesday, though many had not registered in advance and were blocked from entering the center. Take a look.
Jokowi, tolong kami. Dari sini, Bu. Dari sini, Bu. Ini bagaimana Pak Jokowi?
Terjadi karena masyarakat masih belum well informed nih, belum terinformasikan dengan jelas bahwa yang divaksinasi mereka yang sudah mendaftarkan diri. Pada pendaftaran itu sudah jelas ada waktu dan jamnya. Jadi yang tidak mendapatkan waktu dan jam agar menyesuaikan kehadirannya.
In other news, the Myanmar junta has released thousands of jailed anti-coup protesters. Critics of the regime and journalists were among those released, but thousands more remain in detention. Take a look. Now, Myanmar has been rocked by massive protests and a brutal military response since the February coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi and her government. More than 880 civilians have been killed in a crackdown by the State Administration Council, as the junta calls itself, and almost 6,500 arrested, that according to a local monitoring group. Now, after authorities announced the release, a crowd of at least 200 people gathered outside the colonial-era insane prison in Yangon, hoping a loved one might be released, according to an AFP reporter. Journalist Kay Zon Wai of Myanmar Now was among those freed from insane, the news outlet said in a statement. She said she had experienced many things in the notorious jail, but added that she would explain later. Meanwhile, United States journalist Danny Fenster is being held at the same prison after being detained on May 24. There were no foreigners among those released from the insane prison on Wednesday, according to a prison official, on condition of anonymity. While the release will be welcomed by individuals and reunited families, it will do nothing to blunt popular resistance to military rule. That, according to Richard Morsi, the senior advisor on Myanmar to the International Crisis Group. He said they should never have been detained. And he also said that we should also remember that some of these people have faced brutal interrogations and torture that will leave lasting damage, visible and invisible.
In other news, the United States is hoping for a satisfactory arrangement with the Philippines for the continuation of the Visiting Forces Agreement, or RVFA. U.S. Embassy Charge 80 Affairs John Law, in an interview on the sidelines of the American Independence Day celebrations at the embassy on Thursday, said the VFA is very important. Take a look.
I think the Visiting Forces Agreement is very important. We support it, and we're hopeful that we can arrive at a satisfactory arrangement to continue that. We will continue to work very hard to restore the Visiting Forces Agreement. We'll continue to work very hard to do everything we can to continuously strengthen and reinforce the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Law also confirmed that the U.S. has approved the potential sale of F-16 fighter jets and missiles to the Philippines. Law said the U.S. government would welcome the opportunity to further strengthen the interoperability and cooperation between the U.S. and Philippine militaries, but clarified it was never part and absolutely unrelated to the negotiations to renew the VFA. The Visiting Forces Agreement, a 1998 security pact, lays out the terms and conditions on the entry and visit of U.S. military troops for military exercises and other approved activities to the Philippines. Last month's suspension was the third time that Duterte extended the termination's postponement. The first was in June 2020 and the second was in November 2020.
In other news, the Lao Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry has ordered its relevant departments to do more to promote cattle farming, encouraging private operators to produce more cattle for export to China. The Agriculture and Forestry Laos have been told to launch a publicity campaign to inform farmers and producers about the official opening of the Chinese market for Lao cattle. That, according to the local daily Ventian Times, reporting this on Wednesday. Now, Laos has been granted a quota of 500,000 cattle for export to China. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, more than 2,000 cattle were shipped to China from April 28 to May 4 across the border in the Sing district of Luang Namta province, some 360 kilometers northwest of the Lao capital Vientiane, as part of a pilot project. China has asked for bovines that are 4 years old or less and weigh at least 350 kilograms. The Agriculture and Forestry departments in all provinces have been instructed to provide training for farmers, entrepreneurs, and anyone else interested in raising cattle for export to China.
Meanwhile, 5 Asian countries are responsible for 80% of the new coal power stations planned worldwide, with the projects threatening goals to fight the climate crisis, a report warned Wednesday. China, India, Indonesia, Japan, and Vietnam are planning to build more than 600 coal plants, think tank Carbon Tracker said. The stations will be able to generate a total of 300 gigawatts of energy, equivalent to around the entire electricity generating capacity of Japan. The study said the projects are being pursued despite the availability of cheaper renewables, and they threaten efforts to meet the Paris Climate Deal goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. These last bastions of coal power are swimming against the tide. when the renewables offer a cheaper solution that supports global climate targets. According to Katarina Hillenbrand von der Neyen, Carbon Tracker's head of the research. She said investors should steer clear of new coal projects. Experts see phasing out coal, which produces green gas carbon dioxide, as key in battling a climate crisis whose impacts, ranging from species extinction to unlivable heat, are expected to accelerate markedly. Asia Pacific consumed over 3/4 of all coal use globally in 2019, according to BP's statistical review of world energy. Don't go away, ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Be my lady, just forget the past, it's time to mend your broken heart. No walls divide us now, so dry the tears in your eyes. Nothing can stop us now. I'll give you all that I have.
Hello, mga ka-letters and music. Ako po si Benny Saturno, composer, record producer, at abangan niyo po ako sa aking mga likhang awit sa Letters and Music ngayong Sabado, July 3, 1 to 2 p.m. Dito lamang sa Net 25. See you all!
Welcome back. With 6 months left for 2021, several government agencies and business groups have signed a manifesto to generate 1 million jobs by the end of this year. At the closing ceremony of the 42nd National Conference of Employers, both the public and private sectors vowed to implement their task to recover 1 million jobs that were lost due to the impacts of the pandemic. Let's listen in.
And here we are today, ready to launch and sign the partnership between employer sector and key government partners entitled Reform, Rebound, Recover 1 million jobs for 2021. Yes, you heard it right. We will endeavor to generate 1 million direct and indirect jobs. It will be a challenge, but it's doable.
We have highlighted in the manifesto the specific responsibilities that we will undertake to achieve our goal. In general, these responsibilities resonate with our objectives in the Nurse Task Force. These include creating a policy environment that encourages generation and improve access to employment, livelihood, and training opportunities, improving employability, wellness, and productivity of workers by taking advantage of the opportunities in the labor market under the new normal, and providing support to existing and emerging businesses to preserve and create employment. We acknowledge that this is a bold task given the prevailing circumstances. However, we are confident that under the able and strong leadership of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, and with the government and employers working together, we can deliver the creation of 1 million jobs for 2021. On behalf of the Nurse Task Force, we commit, we commit also to delivering the deliverables from the government side and all the programs and policies that you were asking for.
Meanwhile, private sector's responsibilities include identifying job vacancies from its member companies, finding jobs for the qualified but unemployed, recommending specific improvements in the business environment to the Nurse Task Force, co-organizing job caravans, providing necessary assistance such as onboarding process, vaccination process, and reskilling and upskilling referrals in post-job caravans, and providing other support and monitoring mechanisms in the implementation of the project.
Meanwhile, smartphone shipments to Thailand surged 70.9% year-on-year in the first quarter to 6.35 million units, buoyed by demand for the new handsets to receive the government's financial assistance, according to International Data Corporation, or IDC, a tech market research firm. The shipments grew 34.2% from the previous quarter when vendors struggled with supply shortages. There was huge demand from users buying new smartphones or upgrading their devices to be able to receive financial assistance from the government's COVID-19 stimulus packages through the Pautang mobile app, the company indicated in its quarterly mobile phone tracker. According to IDC, sales of affordable 5G handsets also gathered steam. According to IDC, Samsung, which was in fourth place in last year's final quarter, gained top spot at its rollout various new models ranging from the more affordable A series to the high-end flagships Galaxy S21 series. China's Xiaomi leaped with 5th to 2nd place in the first quarter, supported by firm's efforts to expand its channels with more retail chains. The tech giant added more than 230 stores to its portfolio. Vivo, which was at the top in the previous quarter, fell to 3rd place. The Chinese smartphone maker chiefly relied on the entry and mid-level Y series, with the Y12S being a major contributor. However, the mid-level and high-end V series dropped in the first quarter following high shipments in previous quarter. Oppo dropped 2 positions to 4th as it faced a shortage of various low-end and mid-range models because of logistic problems during Chinese New Year. Apple fell from 3rd to 5th, although the new iPhone 12 series still saw strong demand, particularly via telecom operator channel.
In other news, migrant workers employed by a Malaysian palm oil giant have faced mistreatment ranging from physical abuse to poor living conditions, according to a rights groups on Wednesday. The IOI Corporation, or 101, is the latest producer of the commodity to face such allegations, and it follows the U.S. banning imports from 2 other Malaysian palm oil firms over abuse claims. The latest allegations come in a report by rights group Finwatch, which has for several years been documenting problems at IOI, a supplier to consumer giants, including Nestle and Unilever. The Finland-based group, which focuses on corporate responsibility, interviewed Indian workers at an IOI palm oil estate in central Pahang State. The workers complained accommodation was poor, with some forced to sleep on the floor as they weren't given beds, and toilets and kitchens in bad condition, according to the report. Workers were also later given beds after Finwatch complained. A staff member is alleged to have slapped workers. Some complained of paying hefty recruitment fees in breach of IOI's own policies, and they weren't given copies of their employment contracts, according to the group. Finwatch also said some problems had been rectified after they were raised, but the complaints highlighted gaps in the IOI group's wider recruitment and wage policies. Palm oil is a common ingredient in items ranging from processed foods to cosmetics, with Malaysia and neighboring Indonesia producing 85% of the world's supply. But activities have long claimed that low-paid migrant workers on plantations face abuse and also blame the industry for driving destruction of rainforests to make way for agricultural estates.
Meanwhile, the government of Vietnam has issued Resolution number 68/NQ-CP on assistance for people affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Under the resolution, provinces and cities that contribute over 60% of their revenues to central budget will cover the cost of assistance themselves. Central government budget shall provide funding for other provinces as follows. 80% of total amount of assistance provided according to this resolution for mountainous provinces and central highland provinces. 60% of total amount of assistance provided according to this resolution for provinces that receive funding from central government budget, except mountainous provinces and provinces in Tai Nguyen region. 40% of total amount of assistance provided according to this resolution for provinces that contribute under 60% of their revenues to central government budget.
In other news, the Anti-Red Tape Authority, or ARTA, here in the Philippines launched on Thursday a regulatory management code for the government agencies to follow in a bid to further streamline processes. Now, ARTA Deputy Director General Ernesto V. Perez said during the launch ceremony that the Philippine Good Regulatory Principles, or PGRP, is in line with the Ease of Doing Business Law and Administrative Order 23, which both seek to cut red tape in government transactions. The PGRP aims to provide a flexible and principles-based framework in crafting suitable and efficient regulatory policies. It seeks to serve as a guide for regulators to provide policies, procedures, organizational values, behavioral and service standards expected of them, enable for businesses and other regulated entities to understand what they should expect from those who regulate them, Perez explained. Under the PGRP, regulators are expected to provide clear policy rationale, policy objectives, institutional frameworks, and support mechanisms, according to a report from the Business Mirror. We have more for you. Esther and I will be back right after this break.
Samahan sina Wedge Kujamat,
itong balitang panggising sa ulo ng mga balita.
Apple David,
Sa 60 katao ang isinugod sa ospital.
Phoebe Publico
Economic sabotage ang mga tiwaling negosyante.
at Cristel Fesalbon
Pagpresyo ng gulay, makakausap natin
para iatid sa inyo ang mga kaganapan at pangyayari sa bansa at sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Mga napapanahong isyu ng bayan. May balitang sports, entertainment at iba pang kaalaman. Simula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng umaga sa paborito nyong morning show, Pambansang Almusal, dito sa Net 25.
Pambansang Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Welcome back. Modern-day Singapore is known for its orderliness and having one of the world's lowest crime rates. But decades ago, it was a gritty port plagued by rival gangs. The Triad Trails tour, led by reformed gang members, offers the chance for others to learn about this little-known part of the city-state's history. Take a look.
During the 1800s, this place was more like the Wild Wild West, okay, where anything goes, and what rules? Lawlessness rule. So the preparation itself, I think, will take half an hour. People will rob you and kill you for $1, for $1. Languages, if you don't know at any point in time, just raise your hands and say, sorry, I don't understand. I thought 9 times in a week before, but it was for a very different reason. 22, I went in. I started taking drugs when I was 13, went into prison for the first time at the age of 22. In total, I've been in prison 5 times, sentenced to approximately 20-odd years in prison, and I've also received 21 strokes of the cane in Singapore.
I've seen all these buildings, I've walked past all these buildings, but I've actually never known all these buildings until my tour guide Bruce, he went through with us like what this used to be, which you would never imagine it used to be a brothel.
I'm going to be screwed, I still go for it. I'll give you an example.
Finally, in our news, 2 elephants are led to safety after crossing from Myanmar to Bangladesh, getting stranded on a beach and nearly dying at sea. Dwindling forests straddling southern Bangladesh and western Myanmar are some of the last remaining habitats of endangered Asian elephants. Take a look.
There you go. Thank you, Esther, for keeping me company today, as always.
Thanks, Alma. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back next week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Tawagin na natin ang pinakagwapo na pagkagwapo, ladies and gentlemen. Let us all welcome Victor Wood!
Nagustuhan nila Direk at Sir Orly yung performance